How terrifying can a controlling and abusive husband be? Just because the towels in the bathroom weren't lined up perfectly, he immediately called his wife over and forced her to inspect what was wrong on the spot. Laura's face went pale with tension. Once she realized there was indeed a problem, she quickly rearranged the towels while apologizing profusely to her husband. Mike always kept his tone even and calm on the surface, but Laura didn't dare let her guard down for a second. When it came time to prepare dinner, she was terrified of making another mistake. She opened the cabinets repeatedly, checking to make sure everything was arranged just right and that all the can labels faced outward. She checked over and over again until she was absolutely certain nothing was out of place before she dared continue with her work. When she was taking too long to get dinner ready, Mike simply headed out to the beach to chat with their new neighbors. During their conversation, the neighbor casually mentioned that his wife was beautiful. It was just an offhand compliment, but Mike took it to heart. When he returned home, he walked through the door dripping with sarcasm, turning it around to praise the neighbor for being young and handsome. Laura immediately sensed something was wrong and tried to casually brush past him, but Mike only got nastier, even suggesting that the neighbor must have come over while he was out. Despite Laura's repeated denials and insistence that she didn't even know the man, her husband's rage spiraled out of control, and he lashed out at her physically. After 50 years of marriage, this kind of violence had become routine. Laura had thought about escaping the relationship before, but she simply didn't have the strength to fight back. This life was torture for her. But to keep the marriage intact, Laura had no choice but to endure. The next moment, though, Mike seemed like a completely different person. He helped Laura to her feet, speaking to her gently and soothingly, simply because he suddenly remembered there was something important happening that day. Their neighbor had just bought a sailboat and had invited them out on the water that evening. Laura had no choice but to agree. When night fell, they went sailing with their neighbor. But the weather suddenly took a turn for the worse. A violent storm swept in, snapping the sail ropes. Mike rushed over to help, but was accidentally hit by the boom and fell into the water. The neighbor quickly reached out and grabbed him, and by the time they managed to pull him back onto the boat, Mike realized his wife had vanished. The two men frantically called out her name, but no matter how hard they searched, there was no trace of her. They contacted the Coast Guard and requested a search of the surrounding waters, but all they found was her life jacket. What Mike didn't know was that while he had always believed his wife couldn't swim, at that very moment, she had quietly made her way back home. Laura pulled out a package she'd hidden in the ceiling storage. It contained everything she needed to run away, all carefully prepared in advance. She quickly changed her clothes, cut off her long hair, and put on a wig she'd prepared beforehand. Then she took off her wedding ring and flushed it down the toilet. After carefully cleaning up any traces she'd left behind, she took an overnight bus out of town. Laura arrived in an unfamiliar small town. In the town square, children's laughter filled the air, and for the first time, she felt like she could breathe freedom. Laura rented a small house and began settling in. Though it was nowhere near as spacious as her former mansion, she decorated it with care, filling it with warmth and beauty. When the towels were neatly arranged, she deliberately messed them up. When the boxes in the cabinet were lined up perfectly, she knocked them over. This freedom to live however she wanted, that's what made her truly happy. Meanwhile, Mike was still consumed by grief over losing his wife. That is, until a phone call came through, instantly transforming his sorrow into rage. On the other end was a swimming instructor, asking why Laura, who was such an excellent swimmer, had never come to lessons. Mike was furious. He'd always believed his wife couldn't swim, never imagining she'd been hiding this from him all along. If she could swim, how could she have possibly drowned? Back at home, Mike started searching for clues, and sure enough, he found the ring in the toilet. The ring that should have sunk to the bottom of the ocean with his wife had mysteriously appeared at home, convincing him that Laura was still alive. What he never expected, though, was that his wife had not only left him, but had quickly started building an entirely new life, and had even started a new romance. In Laura's new life, there was a neighbor named Sean who had captured her heart. From the moment they met, this man who radiated freedom had drawn her in. Sean was a university professor, not only brilliant, but also a master at creating romantic moments that were impossible to resist. Sean took Laura out into the night, and suddenly the sky lit up with stars. Then snow began to fall gently around them, as if they'd stepped into a dream. Combined with his good looks, he quickly won Laura's heart. But what neither of them realized was that Mike was already making his move. Though he didn't know exactly where Laura was hiding, he knew her one weakness: her mother. Her elderly mother was blind and lived alone in a nursing home. Mike quietly stationed himself near the old woman, waiting patiently. He knew Laura would eventually come to visit her mother. Sure enough, before long, she appeared. But Laura was careful. She'd disguised herself as a man beforehand. Mike was right there behind her, but didn't notice a thing. As she was leaving, the facility manager mentioned to Mike that someone had come to visit the old woman that day.
A young woman.
A young man.
But by the time he rushed out, Laura had already driven away. Watching his wife slip through his fingers again, Mike came up with another plan. Posing as a federal agent, he got information about Laura's current boyfriend from the old woman, then followed the lead. Eventually, he spotted Laura and Sean together at an amusement park, their happiness together making his blood boil. Mike followed them back to Laura's new home. He went into the bathroom and arranged the towels neatly. When Laura saw this, memories of those unbearable times came flooding back. She rushed to open the cabinet and found the boxes inside also arranged in perfect order. In that instant, fear washed over her. She ran toward the door but found a radio blocking her path. Then, from the darkness, she heard slow, deliberate footsteps. Mike emerged from the shadows. Hearing that familiar voice again, Laura finally lost control of her tears. Just then, there was a knock at the door. It was Sean. Mike whispered a threat, warning her not to try anything, then quickly hid behind the door, ready to strike. Laura had no choice but to make up an excuse, saying it was late and convincing Sean to leave. Sean could tell something was off and had his doubts, but he agreed to go.
He's nothing, Laura. Nothing.
However, when he heard Mike's voice from inside, he immediately broke down the door. The two men instantly erupted into a fierce struggle. Sean's strength began to fail, and Mike knocked him unconscious with a weapon. Mike grabbed Laura tightly, trying to drag her back and regain control over everything. But to his shock, Laura suddenly found the courage to fight back, knocking the weapon from Mike's hand. Without hesitation, she seized the opportunity, grabbed the weapon, and fired a shot at Mike. Seeing Mike frozen in place, Laura quickly grabbed the phone and called the police. But she wasn't just calling for help, she carefully described the situation in a strategic way.
Yes, this is Sarah Waters, 408 Tremont. Come quickly. I've just killed an intruder.
After hanging up, Laura fired several more shots, finally cutting through the nightmare and terror that had haunted her for so long.